Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Apparel Academy Podcast. Now, in this episode, we're going to cover a very popular topic, which is starting your t-shirt business, but going into the pros and cons of either drop shipping it or doing it on your own. Okay, so before we get started on this topic, just make sure to give a quick thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already to keep up to date with the latest content. So this is a very popular topic that a lot of people want to know in terms of starting your own t-shirt business, but how to do it, what is the best method or best route to take to grow that business as quickly as possible, or to get the maximum profit potential as possible. So I'll kind of dive deep into some of the pros and cons of either using a fulfillment service and drop shipping your t-shirts with your t-shirt business, and diving into the pros and cons of that versus actually taking the time to do it on your own, and comparing the things that you should think about in arriving at the conclusion of what is the best fit for your business. Okay, so before we kind of dive into the details of each method or each route that you should take when starting your t-shirt business, let's kind of first cover what we mean by drop shipping. Dropshipping is when you are using a third-party fulfillment system that is shipping out the actual t-shirts to your customers. So you are kind of a middleman between your customers and the fulfillment platform that's actually getting the t-shirts out. So how does this exactly work? This type of dropshipping works when you connect your storefront, either your online store or your online website, to a fulfillment platform on the back end, where you upload your designs to your site, right? And they can be on caps, on shirts, or even flip-flops. And people that are visiting your website can purchase these items, but you don't actually have to fulfill it in terms of getting that design onto that piece of garment. You can connect the back end to a fulfillment system whereby they get the order and the specifications of which design on which item, and then they go ahead and ship that out to your customer. So you are kind of just in charge of the front end of the website and how that looks in terms of the designs and the different items on the website to the end user. So let's go over some of the pros and cons of this route, right, with the drop shipping. The pros are obviously most of these fulfillment services are print on demand or embroidery on demand. So what that means is you don't have to worry about how the order gets to the fulfillment partner, right? All you have to worry about is the front end of how the design looks, what design goes on what garment or what item on the front end to your customer. And once the order is placed, you don't have to worry about, oh, when am I gonna actually print it? When am I gonna actually pack it and ship it? The fulfillment partner will do all of that for you. So they will make sure that the order is coming in through their system that's connecting between you, your site, and their system. And then once the order comes in, they will print it, they will pack it, and they will ship it. Some of them will even go as far as having your brand on the packaging that gets shipped out, so that the customers thinks that, okay, this is something that you are fulfilling, but in reality, you are just letting a third-party fulfillment partner do all the kind of back-end work and then shipping the item to your customers. So you don't have to worry about all of that with regards to printing and packing and shipping. So obviously that's the first pro, right? You don't have to worry a lot about the back-end stuff with fulfillment and just worry about the front end with your website to your customers. It takes a lot off of your plate so you can do other things rather than kind of being bogged down by the printing and the packing and the shipping. Now the second pro to this route or this method with dropshipping with a third-party fulfillment partner is that you don't have to carry any inventory, right? You don't have to invest in inventory. And not investing in inventory helps you kind of free up some of that cash flow, because inventory does take up cash flow because you have to invest that up front, and then keeping things in stock, right? You don't have to keep a lot of the things in stock in terms of the blank apparel, and you just have to kind of get what's available on your fulfillment partner site and get those pieces of apparel onto your site with your designs on them. And then whenever someone orders that, they go ahead and packs it and ships it for you, or they first print it and then pack it and ships it for you. So not keeping inventory, it saves you space, and inventory does cost a lot up front to have that in stock so you can fulfill it on time. And also you don't have to deal with kind of keeping certain things that are unpopular on hand, right? You don't have to kind of overstock on some things, and let the fulfillment partner handle all of that, and you just worry about the front end. So definitely not keeping inventory is a second pro of having this dropshipping method or this dropshipping route with a third-party fulfillment partner. So the third pro to this is that you don't have to invest any money upfront to make this happen if you go with a third-party fulfillment partner, right? First of all, you don't have to invest in inventory, as I mentioned before, but also you don't have to invest upfront in equipment in order to print or embroider on the actual garment. And thirdly, you don't have to worry about upfront investment, and you only have to pay out the fulfillment costs once an order comes in. So there's no obligation to kind of sign a contract or anything with these third parties that are fulfilling the order for you. You pay them a cut when they fulfill an order, so you only pay them when your customer pays you. So you don't have to have any money tied up because of a contract or anything upfront. And like I mentioned before, no equipment or no inventory needed. So it saves you a lot of upfront cash, and you just have to worry about the marketing to get the customers in the door and make very good designs so people order the product, but none of the investment upfront in terms of equipment or any contractual obligations with this third-party fulfillment partner. So now that we talked about some of the pros, let's talk about some of the cons of going this route, right? Having a third-party fulfillment partner do the fulfillment for you on the back end. Obviously, if you think about it, if you have someone else do it for you, you have no control, right? That's the first con. You have no control over how the product is gonna look. So you might have to do some upfront work in investigating, whether this fulfillment partner is the right fit and has the right expertise and knowledge to make sure that your clients, because they are ordering through you, that your clients are getting a quality product, right? And number two, along with this con is that not only do you not have control over the quality and how the final product looks, you don't have control over the turnaround time, right? So this goes similar to the quality. You don't know what kind of other orders this fulfillment partner is getting. So if you're outsourcing it to someone else and them drop shipping it for you, you don't know the turnaround time. You can't guarantee a turnaround time for your customer because you might be just one of many fulfillment partners or one of many people that are using that same fulfillment partner that are doing the orders on the back end for them. So not having control over the quality, not having control over the turnaround time might put you in a bit of a bind and not be able to promise your customers a certain level of experience that you might think about, if you want to have more of that control, then this might not be a good fit for you because those two things, you kind of relinquish that control to a third party once you decide to go this route. Now, the second con with going with a dropshipping method is that you never receive the full profit potential of a particular order, right? If you think about it, you need to pay the third-party fulfillment partner to be able to fulfill your order, right? They need to get paid for their work. And the fulfillment part is probably a large chunk of that overall order's margin, right? If you think about an example of just a regular t-shirt that might retail for maybe $20 to $25, you might have to pay out to the fulfillment partner on average maybe $12 to $15, $16 on fulfilling that order for you, right? If it's maybe a $20 shirt, maybe they take a portion of that, maybe $12 off of that $20 shirt. If it's a $25 shirt, a percentage off of that, so perhaps on the higher end, $15 to $16. So you end up potentially losing a portion of the profit potential because you are not doing kind of the hard part of the work, which is actually printing, packing, and shipping, which is more time consuming than the front end of actually getting the business in the door, right? So all of that back end work is worth something. And so, if you are losing that profit potential and you want to, increase your profit potential of this overall t-shirt business, this might not be the good fit for you if you're relinquishing that control and giving away some of that profit margin, probably a huge chunk of that profit margin, to a third party. Okay, so before I forget, if you want to learn more about pricing, because I know I went into an example of a regular t-shirt at retail price, $20 to $25, how you kind of arrive at that pricing, you might want to check out a webinar that I have linked in the description below, where it kind of dives into detail about the number one factor on how to determine your profitability in the custom apparel space. So check that out if you want to learn more about pricing and how to get those, set the right price for the items that you're selling. Okay, so now that we cover some of the pros and cons of dropshipping for your t-shirt business, what about doing it on your own, doing it in-house? What are some of the pros and cons there? So let's kind of dive right in. So doing it yourself as a process is pretty self-explanatory, right? You are in full control of the entire process from start to finish and building a genuine relationship with your clients, right? So you have to invest in the right equipment, the right processes, the right knowledge to take an order from start to finish, not only getting the order, but packing it, shipping it, and obviously printing it or embroidering it, and all of that is under your control, so you have to have the right things in place in order to make that happen. So that's kind of an overview of the process. Now let's dive into kind of the pros and cons of this method or this route that you should take for your custom apparel business. All right, so obviously the first pro of doing this on your own is that you keep all of the profit margin, right? Because you've done all the work from start to finish, not only getting the order in, but you are also taking care of the actual printing or embroidery on the blank apparel itself, and then packing and shipping it to the end user, right? Or your customer that placed the order. So having that control and having done all that work, I mean, you deserve to keep all that profit margin. So your profit potential can be a lot higher, and definitely a lot higher than if you were to outsource it to someone else to fulfill it for you, right? But keeping in mind that you have to have the right equipment, have to have the right knowledge, and but having those things in place, you have a much higher margin than if you were to outsource it. So that's point number one, having that profit margin and the profit potential, especially after your machine is being paid off, right? Obviously, you have to kind of make the payments on the machine on a monthly basis, but after the machine is paid off, your profit potential skyrockets and grows even higher than before the machine is paid off, because now it's just pure profit, right? You're not giving this away to someone else. You're not giving 50-60% the fulfillment cost to someone else, but doing it in-house. It might take more time, but the profit potential is unparalleled versus having to outsource it and having someone else do it. So with this method, obviously it kind of starts off a little bit slower because you have to invest in the equipment, you have to kind of learn it, you have to learn the process and have the right tools in place, but it's kind of a exponential curve, right? Once you kind of hit the ground running and you're in a groove and you're getting those orders anyways that on the front end from your customers that you would otherwise outsource, now you're keeping that profit margin in-house, and it kind of exponentially grows once you hit that cusp and that you have paid off the equipment that you have invested in, and now you're doing all the work and kind of in a groove now. Your profit potential is just unlimited versus being capped by a certain percentage if you outsource to someone else to fulfill the order for you. And even though you have to keep in mind the equipment cost, there are so many options out there nowadays, especially with financing, like the option that we have, right? With $0 down and 0% interest financing, it makes it very affordable and very easy for people to get started and therefore climb that curve and climb that profit potential in order to kind of increase your business flow in the future, right? It's not as daunting as it might be in the past with these financing options. So even though you have to invest in the equipment and learn it, the profit potential in the future, once you kind of hit the ground running, is even more mitigated by, in terms of the upfront risk, is even more mitigated by the fact that you have very affordable options to simply get started with the right product. So if you're interested in kind of finding out ways to kickstart your business and have no upfront costs and low monthly payments, I would definitely encourage you to check out the link that I've put in the description below and see how you can kickstart your business with low monthly payments that we're able to offer for either DTG or embroidery. Now, the second pro of doing it on your own in terms of the custom apparel business is that you are not relying on someone else to fulfill the order for you and therefore depending on their quality and turnaround time, right? You have full control over the entire process, and having that control means several things. Number one, you are not at the whim or having external factors that you have to consider because you are depending essentially on someone else for drop shipping and getting your orders out with high quality and on time. And number two, you've worked so hard to build that brand right? To establish your brand identity in the marketplace, and you want to have that connection with your customers, and having control over the entire process lets you shape and craft the entire experience in any way that you want, right? You can make sure you can be as detailed as possible down to how the shirt is packaged, how the shirt is printed, how it's being shipped, the turnaround time. All of that is up to you to decide, and you can craft the entire experience tailored to your customer that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do if you outsource that to someone else. Now, let's say that you go with the dropshipping method and the dropshipper or the third-party fulfillment partner messes up an order, right? And things do happen. So if they mess up an order, it's not printed properly, or it's not embroidered properly, or it's not shipped out on time because they have other orders that are backed up, that reflects poorly on your brand, because the customer doesn't know that someone else is fulfilling the order on the back end, right? Not having control over the process kind of exposes the risk to your brand, because the customer is going to come back to you and ask for a refund or an exchange, and the poor quality or the slow turnaround time is a reflection of your brand, not the brand of the fulfillment partner, right? Because that's not being exposed to the consumer on the front end. So it all kind of falls back on you at the end of the day. So making sure to have the right fulfillment partner and having the right process in place, that is a risk in and of itself that you might have to consider whether that's a good fit for your custom apparel business. But having control over the entire process, you are ultimately responsible for what the customer gets, right? So, but having that process and having that control in that process in place, I think for some people it gives you more of a peace of mind, knowing that your fate of your brand is not dependent on someone else. And speaking of quality on products, if you're taking ownership of the entire process and fulfilling the orders on your own, and concerned about the quality of the embroidery done on your products, make sure to check out the ultimate cheat sheet that I have linked in the description below, where it kind of dives into detail on the 50 top most popular types of fabrics and what are the right settings and techniques to get the best embroidery outcome on those types of fabrics, so you can make sure that you are getting the best quality of products for your customers. So we talked a little bit about the pros of doing it on your own. Now let's dive into a little bit about the cons of doing it this way and what you should be considering so you can have the full picture before deciding which route to take. Now, we mentioned that if you do it on your own, you keep all the profits, right? But you kind of pay for it in a different way. Even though you are keeping the full profit potential by doing it on your own, you are paying for this in some other ways. And what I mean by that is you have to invest the money in the right equipment, and also perhaps keeping inventory so that you can fulfill the orders on time. So having that upfront cost, it kind of has some upfront risk that you have to be willing to take, and in hopes of getting that money back and breaking even sometime in the near future. But like I mentioned before, I think some of that risk is also mitigated by affordable financing, so that you don't have to kind of dish out the entire cost of the equipment upfront, and you can kind of segment it out and pay it as you go on a monthly basis with 0% financing. So something to consider, but that is an upfront cost that you otherwise would not have if you go with dropshipping and having a third party fulfill the order for you. Now, the second con with doing it on your own is obviously you need to be very knowledgeable about the entire process. And what I mean by that is the actual fulfillment process, the actual printing or the actual embroidery on the garment itself. Because anyone can start a t-shirt business, but it's those who invest the time in learning the craft and doing this very, very well day in and day out that is able to make the most profit out of this, right? Because they get so good at the process, they get so good at the fulfillment aspect that they're more efficient than everyone else. And because like I mentioned before, the fulfillment aspect is what makes the most money, and that's why you pay out a huge chunk to these other third-party fulfillment partners. You pay out a huge chunk to them, but if you keep that in-house, you have to be willing to invest the time and the energy and learn the craft and climb that learning curve. But with the right training, with the right guidance, with the right knowledge, anyone is able to learn that. You're definitely able to learn that, but it does take time and it does take effort, and that's something that people that are just drop shipping it won't necessarily have to deal with. But again, they're sacrificing that profit potential. So this is something that you have to consider, whether you have the time or the energy, or you want to make that effort and investing in the craft in return for larger potential profits down the road. Now, with some machines such as direct-to-garment printing, it's much easier to set up. There's not a lot of maintenance that goes along with that, and it's a much easier learning curve to climb. So if you're thinking about kind of printing t-shirts on your own, that's something that pretty much anyone can just load and plug and play. So that might be something to consider. Now, on the embroidery side, there's a slightly bigger learning curve with regards to learning the craft, learning tension, learning how to thread the machine, learning how to do maintenance. And even though maintenance is not that much, and people can learn this within a day or two with some of our training that we actually just do within one full day, there is that learning curve to climb also with digitizing, right? Learning how to design on your own so you can provide that value to your customers as well. So keeping both options in mind, both have a learning curve. I would say that DTG is on the smaller end where it's more plug and play. And then on the embroidery side, there's a slightly bigger learning curve, but that's also why embroidery is much more profitable, right? The people that are doing embroidery make a lot more than people doing direct-to-garment printing, and an average t-shirt that's printed versus embroidered costs very differently to the end user, right? Embroidery is much higher value, and therefore the learning curve is a little bit higher, but also the profit potential also higher with that method. And like I mentioned before, the more you know your machine, the more efficient you're gonna get, and the more you're able to scale. So those that invest in time to learn the craft, although we're covering this as a con, but those who are able to overcome that hurdle, they see their profit potential skyrocket because they've overcome that initial learning phase, and now they're much more efficient. And when they're able to drum up all that business and the orders are coming in, they're able to fulfill it much faster and invest the time saved on the fulfillment side to invest more time in getting new business. So it's kind of a positive reinforcing cycle where the more efficient you get, the more time you can spend working, getting more business and therefore getting more orders done. So to sum everything up, I think you need to consider what's the right fit for you. But I would generally say that if you're the type of person that has limited experience with actual embroidery or printing, but are very good at designing the graphics, right? What actually goes on the t-shirts, then the first method of dropshipping might be a good fit for you because you don't have to invest the time to learn the equipment. You don't have to invest the time or the money to buy the equipment and kind of climb that learning curve, and you can just kind of outsource all that the back end fulfillment aspect to someone else and just focus on getting quality looking logos and designs onto your website so that it attracts your customers in placing the order. Now, if you're a second type of person where you are more hands-on, that you want to be in there deep with the fulfillment aspect, with printing or actually doing the embroidery, and wanting to keep all of that profit margin in-house, and you have the ability to do that, you have the kind of you already kind of started some business on your own and have the profits or the money to invest in equipment, and wanting to scale your business, wanting to kind of earn more profit potential, then the second method of actually doing it on your own will definitely make a lot more sense, because why pass on all that profit margin to someone else when you are the type of person that wants to do it and you want to make more and you have the capabilities to make more. So consider both options and ask yourself, what type of person you are and what category you fall into, and therefore get the right method in place or the right route in place so that you can be well on your way to achieving success in the custom apparel space. So at the end of the day, it's entirely up to you, and both dropshipping or doing a t-shirt business on your own has its pros and cons, which we've thoroughly covered in this video. So at the end of the day, it's up to you and what fits best for your business. I definitely encourage you to think about it and kind of go back to the pros and cons that we talked about, and in determining what is the best fit for you. And at the end of the day, it's your decision on how you want to take your business moving forward, either investing more time on marketing and just getting the business in, or managing the entire cycle from end to end and earning more potential along the way once you pass the initial learning phase. All right, and that's it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this topic. If you want to learn more about this topic in depth, there's a link in the description below for an in-depth blog that we've written on this topic. And if you're ready to get started with DTG printing or embroidery, make sure to check out the sale that we have going on in the description below. Last but not least, if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to our podcast and join our free Facebook group, Embroidery and Custom Apparel Mastery, where you can join thousands of other apparel decorators and ask questions and engage in a group of like-minded people. So I hope to see you guys on the next episode, and any questions, make sure to comment below. I'll make sure to get them answered. Talk real soon.